Welcome to the Intercourse Show. Today we have a very exciting show for you. We are breaking live on the second day of the Middle East war between Israel in the U.S. and Iran. For those who haven't heard the news, Khamenei is dead. And there's been an escalation of tension and events taking place. I believe Iran has bombed military bases. They bombed the Dubai airport and a few other places. Some hotels got hit. This thing is escalating. Russia has weighed in. China has weighed in. And Pakistan apparently stormed the U.S. consulate in Pakistan. There's folks out in Pakistan did that. So what we'll do is we'll jump into a publication that I trust and see what the latest developments are. I just want to keep my viewers informed of what's going on. All right.
Developments in West Asia, but now let's also talk about the man himself. For more than 3 decades, Iran had one man at the top, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He was not elected as the so-called supreme leader by the public, but he controlled everything in the country. Presidents changed, policies shifted, but Khamenei stayed. He shaped Iran's nuclear ambitions. He oversaw its regional alliances and defined its confrontation with the West. But now he's gone, and he leaves the country at a crossroads. So how did Ayatollah Ali Khamenei rise to power, and what kind of Iran did he build? Here's his story.
He rarely gave interviews. He never held a press conference. And for over 36 years, no one in Iran could truly challenge or question him in public. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was the most powerful man in Iran and one of the most secretive leaders in the world. Born in 1939 in Mashhad, a holy city in northeastern Iran, he grew up poor. His family sometimes had nothing to eat but bread and raisins, but books shaped him deeply. Yet it was Islam and a fiery cleric named Ruhollah Khomeini that set the course of his life. By the time the Islamic Revolution toppled the Shah of Iran in 1979, Khamenei was already a trusted figure in the movement. He had been jailed multiple times for opposing the monarchy, and then was reportedly exiled to a remote desert city near the Pakistan border. But when the Islamic Revolution succeeded in 1979, everything changed. His rise was immediate. He became the Deputy Defense Minister, then briefly the head of the Revolutionary Guards, and then Iran's president in 1981. That same year, a bomb tore through a Tehran mosque where he was speaking. It destroyed the use of his right hand. He taught himself to write with his left hand and kept going. But the role that would define his legacy came in 1989, when Ayatollah Khomeini died. Khamenei was chosen as the supreme leader, and he was handed absolute power over a nation of millions. What followed was nearly 4 decades of iron control. He had the final say on everything: the nuclear program, foreign policy, and who was allowed to run for president. Khamenei expanded the Revolutionary Guards into a parallel state. Beyond Iran's borders, he funded and armed Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and several other armed groups across the region. His hostility towards the West and Israel
is certainly real. It's using an energy field, the type of anti-gravity.
It's the Islamic Revolution itself. They are enemies of the Islamic Republic itself.
On the nuclear question, he was equally unyielding.
The Iranian nation surely will not abandon its right, and the Iranian officials have no right to deprive the nation of its right.
We've achieved this historic progress through diplomacy, without resorting to another war in the Middle East.
A landmark deal in 2015 briefly suggested a different path was possible. But when Donald Trump walked away from it in 2018, and reimposed sweeping sanctions, Khamenei's position only hardened.
We negotiated, we gave concessions, we compromised, but we did not achieve the intended results. The other party still violated, undermined, and ultimately tore up the very same agreement.
At home, dissent was never tolerated. When millions took to the streets after a disputed election in 2009, they were crushed. When a young Kurdish Iranian woman died in police custody in 2022, and the country erupted in protests, the crackdown was brutal. Every time, the explanation was the same.
I say clearly that these riots and insecurities were designed by America and the usurping and fake Zionist regime.
But even as he crushed dissent at home, the pressure from outside was mounting. By June last year, Israel had struck Iran's nuclear sites in what came to be known as the 12-day war. When Trump demanded unconditional surrender, Khamenei's response was defiant.
Surrender to what? The Iranian people do not surrender. We are not the aggressor, and we will not accept any kind of aggression.
But the ground beneath him was already shifting. In late December, protests broke out across Iran after the collapse of the national currency. The response was as brutal as ever. But this time, what started as economic anger quickly turned into something far larger. Now, the man who shaped Iran for 4 decades is gone. He was 86 years old. What he leaves behind is a country at a crossroads and a region that will likely feel the consequences for years to come.
We told you about the latest developments in West Asia, but now let's also talk about the man himself. For more than 3 decades, Iran had one man at the top, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He was not elected as the so-called supreme leader by the public, but he controlled everything in the country. Presidents changed, policies shifted, but Khamenei stayed. He shaped Iran's nuclear ambitions. He oversaw its regional alliances and defined its confrontation with the West. But now he's gone, and he leaves the country at a crossroads. So how did Ayatollah Ali Khamenei rise to power, and what kind of Iran did he build? Here's his story.
He rarely gave interviews. He never held the press conference.
So as you can see, that's the backstory with Khamenei. Let's go ahead and get some additional updates on what's going on.
Imagine being able to build.
We are going to join the I guess there's a United Nations conference that was called, where all the nations are discussing this. China and Russia, I believe, was at the forefront of calling that conference. We're going to join that right now. Let's go ahead and do that.
Has become an enemy to the 3 people on the planet. It's horrible.
Yeah, no, it really is. All right. Fred Flights, Tony Schaefer, appreciate it. We'll have you back.
Thank you.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. Much more on this. Just a sec.
America is blessed with countless servicemen and women who have bravely fought on our behalf. They've paid the price in body and spirit so we can enjoy our freedom.
By joining the military during a very active period of war, I absolutely went into it with the idea that I could die. Both my legs were amputated due to an IED that I sustained while I was deployed to Iraq. I mean, I'm still here, so there must be something more.
Far too many struggle to get the care and benefits they earned through service and sacrifice. Disabled American Veterans is a lifesaver for our injured heroes. They help service members of all ages get the help they need, but they can't do it alone.
There were moments of frustration. You can't do this anymore, you can't go here anymore. I absolutely felt like I lost some of my purpose.
I'm asking you to join me and other patriotic Americans and donate only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. Your monthly donation will help veterans like Nick Kolchar. For 100 years, DAV, Disabled American Veterans, has been fighting to keep our promises to our injured heroes each and every day, ensuring that our sons and daughters get the care and assistance they deserve. You'll help them get the financial and medical benefits they've earned and receive the care and emotional support they need.
When you call or go online right now with your pledge of just $19 a month, we'll send you this DAV t-shirt as a way you can share your support for our brave veterans.
Join me and other patriotic Americans and support DAV. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can say thank you in the most meaningful way. Please call or
under the fourth border clashes have also. Can Iran's regime keep fighting? Did the US military use Anthropic's Claude to launch strikes on Iran? Did Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince MBS secretly ask Donald Trump to attack Iran? And what do these repeated missile and drone incursions mean for West Asia's model city, Dubai? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Pro-Iranian protesters try to storm US consulates in Pakistan and Iraq. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif cancels his trip to Russia, cites regional and internal situation for this decision. Since last Thursday, fresh cross-border clashes have also erupted between Islamabad and Kabul. Hezbollah vows to confront the US and Israel over their strikes on Iran and the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So far, the Tehran-backed group has not taken any action. Last June, Hezbollah did not intervene in Iran's 12-day war with Israel after being battered in its own conflict with Tel Aviv. The OPEC Plus group hikes oil production by more than expected. The adjustment will be implemented in April. Top oil producers like Saudi Arabia and Russia are part of this alliance. The decision comes as tensions across West Asia continue to escalate. Iran's retaliatory strikes have targeted key members of this oil cartel. Belgium Special Forces board and seize an oil tanker from Russia's shadow fleet. The vessel was intercepted in the North Sea. Brussels says the tanker was sailing under the false flag of Guinea. The West has often accused Russia of using tankers of dubious ownership to evade sanctions over the Ukraine war. And at least 2 people killed in a shooting in the U.S. state of Texas. 14 others have been injured in this incident, which took place in a popular bar in Austin. The suspected gunman was fatally shot by the police. It's day 2 of the war in West Asia, and things are only intensifying. Missiles continue to hit Arab cities and Israel. Israeli jets continue to strike Iran. It's the ultimate battle of firepower versus endurance. And it's not stopping. A new wave is unleashed every few hours. Neither side is willing to back down right now. Despite taking severe hits, Iran is retaliating hard. They now claim to have struck America's USS Abraham Lincoln carrier in the region. This is an aircraft carrier. Iran says, we attacked it, we struck it. That too with 4 ballistic missiles. The US says the warship was not hit and that the missiles did not even come close. But the fact is, things are escalating fast. And there's a reason why. Today began with a shocking announcement. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had been killed. Reports say the CIA and Mossad had triangulated his position. On Saturday morning, he was holding a meeting in Tehran. In that meeting, top military leaders of Iran were present. So the Israeli Air Force decided to act on this input. Their initial plan was to begin attacking at night. But after this input, they waited until Saturday morning. And in the first wave, Khamenei was taken out. He was holed up at a military compound in the capital. Look at the aftermath of the strike. You can see the images before and after the impact. The compound was completely destroyed. Iran did not immediately confirm Khamenei's death. It was Donald Trump who made the first announcement. Listen to what he said, and I'm quoting, Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. Hopefully, the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness it deserves. Well, that was wishful thinking. Yes, Khamenei's death was a huge blow to the regime. This is a man who's led Iran since the year 1989. He has dominated the country's religion and politics for decades. As his death was announced, even reporters broke down on air.
بعد از عمری مجاهدت حسینی و دائمی و خستگی ناپذیر روح بلند و ملکوتی کوه نستوه ولایت پدر مهربان امت.
Well, the regime did not disintegrate despite everything. Surviving officials spoke to the nation. They said that Khamenei's killing had burnt the country's heart. And in response, they vowed to make Israel pay.
This incident is a very bitter incident for us, for the entire nation of Iran. America and the Zionists, with this move, have effectively created conditions for Iran and for the Iranian nation that we must say they have burned the heart of the Iranian nation. We will burn their hearts. They must understand that it is not like they can strike and then get away.
The attack did not just kill Khamenei, it killed many others who were present in the same compound. Khamenei's grandchild, his daughter-in-law, and his son-in-law. Plus, several top Iranian military leaders were present. And they've been killed. The defense minister was killed, for instance. The armed forces chief was killed. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards chief was also killed. And so was the secretary of Iran's Defense Council. Reports say former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was also killed in a separate strike. And remember, we're talking about the most important men in Iran. All of them were wiped out in one go. Yet Iran was striking back in no time. Yesterday, they focused their firepower on the Gulf states. Today, the focus was on Israel. Dozens of ballistic missiles and drones were fired at Israel. Millions of citizens were forced to take cover. As always, Israel's air defenses intercepted some of them, but a handful of missiles did land directly. Reports say around 40 buildings, 40 buildings in Tel Aviv were damaged. We also saw fires break out in high rises. Take a look at this. Iran is also hitting US bases. Washington has announced that 3 of their soldiers have been killed so far, plus 5 others have been injured. These are the first US casualties in the ongoing war. As things stand, we do not know when, where or how this happened. But the US statement does talk about shrapnel injuries and concussions. Israel was not sitting idle either. Their military also carried out attacks through the day. Operationally, the Israelis seem to have 3 goals. The first is to establish complete aerial superiority. Earlier this morning, Israel hit more than 30 targets in western and central Iran, and this included air defenses, missile launchers, and command centers. Hours later, Israel went deeper. They claim to have hit the heart of Tehran.
This game, you're not ready for it.
This is basically the nerve center of the Iranian capital. It's home to the airport and key regime offices. And on day 2, Israel has started attacking these sites. Their end goal is to create an air corridor to Tehran. And we saw that last June. Israel used short bursts to take out Iran's air defenses. Once air superiority was achieved, the attacks became relentless, sort of like a train of jets constantly attacking. That's what Israel is eyeing again. They want to freely operate over the skies of Tehran, and for that, their first stop is Western Iran. You cannot reach Tehran without flying over Western Iran, and Israel knows this. They're taking out Iranian jets in the region, that too right on the tarmac before takeoff. So that's the first goal, air superiority. The second goal is to decapitate the military leadership. Israel has killed dozens of senior leaders, including 40 commanders, in 1 minute.
In the opening strike of the operation, the IDF eliminated 40 commanders and seniors from the Iranian regime in 1 minute. The Air Force's fighter jets are operating around the clock to locate and strike missile-array targets of the terrorist Iranian regime.
Now the third goal, take out Iran's offensive capabilities. We're talking about the missiles and the launchers here. They want to demolish them. Israeli jets are targeting launchers in the west of Iran. Some of them are being blown up while being loaded. Casualties are slowly starting to rise. In Iran, more than 200 people have been killed so far, including more than 100 girls at a school. While in Israel, 9 people have been killed and dozens injured. Now remember, these are just the opening salvos of a massive war. Both sides will soon get desperate, and that's when civilians will feel the pinch. Now, here's the thing about wars like this. They don't just play out on the ground, they play out on our screens. A missile tearing through the night sky, an explosion flashing before the camera can focus, a shaky phone clip filmed by someone who never meant to become a war correspondent. This is not just war as it happens, this is war as it is witnessed, recorded, uploaded, and replayed. So we looked at the videos, and we've compiled 6 such videos from the conflict, moments that capture the war and define it. Video number 1 takes us to Iran. This morning, the confirmation came in, the supreme leader was dead, and then thousands of people poured out on the streets. Some in black, some beating their chests, some weeping openly. Men and women holding up portraits of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Some of them said that they'd lost a father. But here's the other side of the frame. Not everyone was in mourning because not everyone loved this regime. This was a leadership that crushed dissent, that jailed protesters, that oversaw years of sanctions, isolation, and economic pain. So in many corners of the country, there were also celebrations. Some people were even dancing on the streets. Some videos even show a big crowd toppling a monument built in Khamenei's honor. So two very different Irans playing out on camera. Which brings us to video number 2. Wars may be fought on the battlefield, but they are won or lost on the screen, it seems. And that's where the curated strike videos come in. Both the United States and Israel have released such videos. Israel is showing targeted strikes on Iranian targets, and Washington is displaying its firepower. Video number 3 is from Dubai. It has long been known as one of the safest cities in the world, a safe haven for business, tourism, global finance, but it now finds itself on the front line of a widening regional war. Yesterday, a hotel came under attack in Dubai, the upscale Palm Jumeirah. It was struck by an Iranian drone. There was a massive fire. 4 people were injured. Officials say that it did not cause much damage. Some 137 missiles and 209 drones were fired at the UAE. Most of them were intercepted. Today, too, there were multiple strikes. The Dubai International Airport was also attacked. This is one of the busiest airports in the world. We'll tell you about other such attacks in a bit. But this is not so much about the physical damage alone. It's more about the shock value. For many people, Dubai is no longer the safe haven they once knew.
Apparently you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wix Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible. Or vibe code.
Holy mother.
And it's not just Dubai. Iran's retaliation has rattled other Gulf states too. In Doha, for instance, flashes lit up the night sky as they intercepted Iran's missiles. Loud explosions were heard in the Qatari capital, leaving residents worried about the impact. And that's video number 4 for us. In Bahrain, things were even more grave. There were multiple airstrikes, missiles heading towards them. Bahrain intercepted most of them, but some struck buildings and led to massive fires. That's video number 5. It shows flames engulfing the upper levels of a skyscraper with dense plumes of smoke rising above the Bahraini capital, Manama. Next is Kuwait, and our last video. A reported drone strike hit the airport, sending passengers scrambling for cover. Videos from inside the terminal show thick smoke filling the hall, travelers running in fear, children crying, and security forces rushing to lock down the area. Kuwaiti state television called it a drone strike targeting the airport. So far, officials have not confirmed the extent of the damage or whether there are any casualties. But of course, this is not happening in isolation. Across the Gulf, emergency aviation measures are now in place. The United Arab Emirates temporarily shut its air force. Qatar suspended air traffic, and Kuwait has cancelled all flights to Iran until further notice. Right now, the airspace over West Asia is completely empty. So those were our top videos, a window into a war that is fast spreading across West Asia. It's not limited to 1 or 2 countries. It's across the region. It is the perfect storm. Iran is facing a crisis on three fronts. There is a power vacuum, a succession crisis, and an active war. Can the regime survive this? Are there any leaders left in their top ranks? And who will lead the country now? As we speak, a transition is underway. Within hours of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's death, there was an announcement. It came from Iran's security chief, Ali Larijani. We've told you about him. Larijani is a key figure in the country's political setup. He was a key confidant of Khamenei, a trusted lieutenant. According to many observers, he could play a key role in the transition of power. Although Larijani will not become the supreme leader himself because he's not a cleric, but he will be kingmaker. Now, Larijani says that an interim leadership council has been created. This council has 3 members: Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, the head of Iran's judiciary, Ghulam Hussein Mohseni Ezesi, and a senior cleric from the Guardian Council. Now, what is the Guardian Council? Think of it as Iran's constitutional watchdog. It does not make laws, but it decides who is allowed to run in important elections. They can block any candidate that they do not approve of. Effectively, this council controls who appears on the ballot in Iran. And that makes them one of the most powerful bodies in Iran. One of the council's senior members is now part of this 3-member power transition team. This team will handle the supreme leader's duties, but this is an interim arrangement until the next supreme leader is elected. Now, how will he be elected? That decision rests with a different institution. It's called the Assembly of Experts. It had 88 senior clerics as members. They're elected by Iranian citizens every 8 years. This assembly of 88 clerics, 88 experts, will pick the next supreme leader. But it may not happen in a hurry because, as you can see, Iran is still fighting a war. Iranian cities, including the capital Tehran, are still being bombarded. Senior clerics are either hiding or on the move. So convening all 88 of them is going to be a challenge at this point.
Bob told us that they were going to test the alien craft that night.
Observers say the work would already have begun. It is possible that senior clerics are holding discussions in secret, which brings us to the next question. Who are the potential candidates? And this is where it gets complicated because there is no obvious successor. For years, the frontrunner was former President Ibrahim Raisi. He was seen as the natural heir to Khamenei. But Raisi died in a helicopter crash in 2024. Since then, the field has been wide open. Khamenei did plan for a scenario like this. Last year, during the 12-day war with Israel, he made a list. Reports say that he picked 3 potential successors, 3 potential leaders who could replace him, but their names were never made public. That list of 3 leaders could decide Iran's future. It is also possible that the people who knew this list, who knew the names of Khamenei's potential successors, might also be dead. Because, like we've been telling you, Israel's strikes did not just kill Khamenei, they decimated the command structure around him. More than 30 top military and civilian leaders were targeted. At least 7 are confirmed dead. Despite all the ambiguity, some names are still doing the rounds. The names of potential successors. Names like Mojtaba Khamenei. He is one of Ayatollah Khamenei's 4 sons. Now, Mojtaba is not a public figure. He operates entirely in the shadows. Reports say he manages much of his father's wealth and influence, but he has no formal position in the state. So he could take over. That's one possibility. Another possibility is the IRGC taking over. That's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It is Iran's elite military force, not their regular army. This one is in charge of protecting the regime. It controls significant portions of Iran's economy as well as key power centers. So it is possible that the IRGC could step in to this vacuum. What about Donald Trump? He's not taking over, but will he try to install a leader of his choice? Trump has said publicly that he wants regime change in Iran, and there is only already one man, angling for the job. I'm sure there are many, but this one is very, very prominent. Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's last Shah. He praised the attack on Iran within hours of the first strikes. He called the strikes a humanitarian intervention. Pahlavi is a man in exile, but he's making a serious play for power. The problem is, Iranians are sharply divided over him. So even if he were installed, the government would be deeply unstable. The other thing is this: no regime has been changed by aerial strikes alone. Ground invasions have been tried in Iraq and Afghanistan, but neither produced a stable outcome. Because you see, bombs can remove leadership. They cannot build one. So Trump might not be able to dictate an outcome here. He may have been successful with that in Venezuela, but Iran is not Venezuela. Venezuela collapsed because power lived in one place at the very top, in the president's office. Iran is different. In Iran, power does not live in one office alone. It is distributed across multiple institutions. The Supreme Leader, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Guardian Council, the Assembly of Experts, the judiciary, each institution holds a piece of the system. The question is, how many of these power structures have survived? Can the chain of command be re-established? More importantly, can the regime sustain itself in the current form? Amid relentless attacks from Trump and Israel and a fragile economy. The world will find out in the days ahead. Iran's hand is significantly weak. Their top leadership is gone. Their air defenses are obliterated, and they stand alone without allies or proxies. So here's the question: how long can this regime keep fighting? It depends on 5 factors. The first factor is geography. Iran is a vast country with deserts, mountains, and rugged hills. Not to mention, it's a massive country. Iran's size is around 1.6 million square kilometers. 1.6 million square kilometers, that's more than 3 times the size of Iraq and more than 2 times the size of Afghanistan. Remember, the US tried regime change in both these countries, Iraq and Afghanistan, and both times the Americans lost. So chances are the US will not put soldiers in Iran. And without soldiers on the ground, it will be hard to install and protect a new regime. And this is just one benefit of the geography. The vast landmass allows Iran to absorb more attacks. Just compare it to Israel. Israel's area is only 22,000 square kilometers. It's basically a packed strip of people. So any Iranian attack will cause massive damage in Israel. And we saw that last year in June. Israel landed 379 attacks on Iran. They hit 28 out of Iran's 31 provinces, and yet Iran kept firing back. In response, the Iranians landed around 50 missile hits on Israel. And 50 hits was enough to force a ceasefire. You see the difference? 379 attacks from Israel versus 50 attacks from Iran. In geopolitics, we call this strategic depth. When you're attacked, you can fall back deeper into your vast land. Iran has the depth, Israel does not. Then you have the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is located on this key waterway. It carries around 20% of global oil shipments. Iran's navy can easily block this waterway and choke oil supplies. Again, it's a blessing of geography. But geography alone cannot protect them forever. The second factor is their missile stockpile. This is the regime's offensive trump card. So far, the Iranians have fired more than 150 ballistic missiles at Israel and US targets. Last June, they'd fired 500. And how many do they have? Reports say Iran has some 3,000 missiles. Not all of these missiles can reach Israel. Some of them can only reach neighboring US bases. So Iran will have to make some crucial calculations. Do they fire endlessly? Do they fire in waves? How many missiles in each wave? Which missiles for different targets and so on? They will have to optimize all of that. Plus, it's not enough to have missiles. You also need launchers to fire those missiles. Both Israel and the US are taking out those launchers. They're attacking Iranian launchers. So while the missiles are a key weapon, Iran will have to use it strategically.
Whoa. What's that? I just built a budgeting app in Base 44. Guys, Nina just built an app.
Then we come to the third factor, the role of the Iranian people. It is no secret that the regime is unpopular in Iran. A lot of Iranians are fed up with the brutal clerical rule. The question is, will that force them to hit the streets? Will they mobilize to take on the regime's forces? Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump are betting on this, but the problem is there is no organized opposition in Iran. There is no nationwide democracy movement. Thus, right now, the people are scared. Israeli and American bombs are streaking over their heads. In this atmosphere of fear, people may hesitate to go out and protest. Which brings us to the fourth factor. Will the regime crack? We saw this happen in Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro's deputy tacitly sided with the US. She agreed to take over after Maduro's capture. If that happens in Iran, the regime may collapse or transform itself. But as of now, that has not happened. Unlike Venezuela, Iran's regime is a hardened ideological theocracy. It is bound together by religion, personality, cults, and ideological rigidity. Those are extremely hard to break apart. So if the regime does not crack, you will need even more power to overthrow it. Basically, take out more and more senior leaders. And now the final factor. Can the US allies take strong punches? Say the Gulf Arab economies take a huge hit. Say Arab citizens are killed or injured in this crossfire. Will these countries absorb the punches like Iran or Israel? Will their rulers show the appetite to hit back? Iran is hoping they won't. Iran is hoping that these attacks will force the Gulf states to push Trump for peace. So far, it has not worked, but it's a strategy that Iran is betting on. Even if the regime is toppled, an orderly transition appears unlikely. History is proof of that. If Iraq did not work, if Afghanistan did not work, if Libya did not work, why would it work in a larger, more complex and powerful country like Iran? Some people may ask, what if it does work? Well, yes, there is always an outside chance that something works. But to test out your hunch, you're putting 90 million lives at risk. And that is why regime changes are universally condemned, not because people like oppressive regimes, but because the cost of failure is way too high. A new weapon is part of the battlefield in West Asia. It's not a missile or a drone. It is artificial intelligence, specifically Anthropic's Claude platform. The US used Claude to strike Iran. Claude was used to map targets, identify patterns from the intelligence inputs, and create military simulations. Now, this is very significant and interesting because just days before the attack on Iran, US President Donald Trump had declared war on Anthropic. He virtually banned Anthropic's tools from the US military setup. They were labeled as a national security threat. Trump ordered American agencies to stop using Anthropic's Claude. The Pentagon called Anthropic a risk to America's supply chains. This is a kind of designation reserved only for rivals like Russia and China. They used it for Anthropic. And barely days later, Anthropic's Claude is helping the US strike Iran. The US may still stop using Claude, but not immediately. The military establishment says it could take up to 6 months for them to change platforms. Meanwhile, details of this operation are also revealing. They demonstrate how AI is changing the battlefield. The US military began using Claude in 2024, and since then, its role has grown quietly but significantly. Reports say Claude was used in Venezuela as well. For the operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, they used Claude. And now it has played a role in Iran too. So what does Claude do for the US military? Most of us know the platform. It works like a chat bot, something you can type in your questions into and the bot answers the queries. That's what we understand. But the US military uses a different version of Claude. And in that system, Claude is not a chat bot. In that system, it works like a powerful reasoning and analysis system. It processes vast amounts of intelligence data faster than a human. It can identify targets, it can identify patterns, and it can simulate war scenarios. You can think of it like a war room assistant, one that never misses any patterns. One of the primary users of Claude, in fact, is the US Central Command, or CENTCOM. They use Claude. Now, CENTCOM is headquartered in Florida. CENTCOM looks after all US operations in West Asia. And how do they use Claude? Broadly for three purposes. One is intelligence assessments, second, target identification, and third, battle simulation. To put it simply, Claude helps the US military decide who to strike, where to strike, and when, what can happen in an active battlefield next.
If your resume looks like this, you're not getting hired. This layout, no structure, no order, it's just too chaotic.
And it gauges all of this based on previous data. CENTCOM was asked which of these systems was used in the Iran operations. And they decided not to share specifics. But some reports do confirm that Claude was part of the operation. So did it play a role in the killing of Ali Khamenei? We do not know that. In fact, there is limited information about the whole operation, limited details, but here's what we know. The whole thing was intelligence-driven. The planning began months ago. Reports say the CIA had been watching Khamenei's movements for months. Over a period of time, they were able to build a picture about the locations that Khamenei visited, his movement patterns, his routines. Recently, the CIA had an intelligence breakthrough. They learned that a meeting has been convened. A meeting will be held on Saturday, 28th February, which was yesterday. The CIA learned that Iran's top leadership would be present in that meeting, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself. And they learned that the meeting would happen in a compound in Tehran. The CIA had all this information. They passed it on to the Israelis, who then carried out the mission yesterday. It began at around 6 a.m. in Israel. Fighter jets lifted off from their bases. They were armed with long-range precision munitions, weapons which can conduct surgical strikes. At around 9:30 a.m. in Tehran, a missile struck that compound. It took out senior Iranian officials along with Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So the intelligence was accurate. And that can be the difference between victory and defeat in a war. Intelligence has always been critical in a war. What is new is speed. Because AI is now inside the decision-making process. Thankfully, AI is not taking decisions just yet, but it is making the process faster. Data that took days to process can now be assessed within hours. And what happened in Iran is a demonstration of that shift. So West Asia is on fire. Explosions were heard in Saudi Arabia's Riyadh as well. The kingdom confirmed the strikes. It said Iran had hit its capital and eastern region. Now, we don't know about the extent of the damage, but Saudi Arabia is furious. Riyadh says it has the right to respond.
These attacks cannot be justified under any pretext or in any way, and they came despite the Iranian authorities knowing that the kingdom had confirmed that it would not allow its airspace and territory to be used to target Iran.
But here's the bigger question doing the rounds. Did Saudi Arabia's crown prince quietly convince Donald Trump to pull the trigger? Did he lobby Trump to attack Iran? We're talking about MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. Reports say he may have persuaded Donald Trump to attack Iran. In fact, look at this report. It says the US and Israel struck Iran, but the decision was not just theirs. A third party was involved in taking this call. And that third party was MBS, the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. Publicly, he's been calling for diplomacy, but privately, he's apparently been making repeated phone calls to Donald Trump. And in every call, he had one request: take military action against Iran. Now, if this version is to be believed, MBS was pushing Trump to attack Iran. And then, of course, there's Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. It's something that he's wanted for decades, attacking Iran. He wanted Trump to end an existential Iranian threat. That's what Netanyahu calls it. So you had two powerful regional leaders, MBS and Benjamin Netanyahu, both leaning on Washington, both trying to convince Trump to act. And the US president actually did. So why would MBS want this? Here's where the story gets deeper. Saudi Arabia and Iran are not just rivals, they are ideological enemies. Saudi Arabia is the center of Sunni Islam. Iran is the powerhouse of Shia Islam. The rivalry goes back to 1979, the year of the Islamic Revolution. It's when the Islamic Republic of Iran was created. Since then, the two countries have fought multiple proxy wars, from Yemen to Syria to Iraq to Lebanon, and they were never direct conflicts. But it was sort of like a West Asian Cold War, one that had been simmering for decades. And in recent years, from Riyadh's perspective, Iran has been winning. Iran controlled groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iran had immense influence in Iraq. Iran had the support of the Houthis in Yemen, who kept firing missiles towards Saudi territory. So Iran had strategic depth, and Riyadh was rattled by this. Then why pretend about diplomacy? Well, that's the interesting part. In recent years, Saudi Arabia and Iran had started cautiously restoring ties. China brokered a diplomatic thaw a few years back. Also, public diplomacy protects Saudi Arabia's image. But privately, pressurizing Trump helps their security interests. After all, Khamenei's killing weakens Tehran's ideological core. And from Riyadh's perspective, that could be a positive shift. That's it. It happened without Saudi Arabia firing a single missile. So it's a win-win situation for them. But then again, why would Trump listen to MBS? Frankly, we don't know if MBS convinced him. But the report strongly suggests that he did lobby Trump, and he did it repeatedly, and Trump was already inclined to confront Iran. So the lobbying from Israel and Saudi Arabia only added to his resolve. He was already leaning towards the attack. They may have given the final push, because this aligns with everyone's interest. Israel sees Iran as a mortal enemy. Saudi Arabia sees Iran as a regional threat, and Trump sees Iran as a long-standing adversary. So attacking Iran makes sense for all three of them. I must repeat here, these are just reports. And in cases like these, official confirmation or proof is hard to come by, so we go with reports. If these reports are true, MBS won without firing a shot. He did not have to mobilize troops or make speeches. All he needed was access to Donald Trump.
Work today is broken. Every day, people juggle so many different tools just to get work done. A simple task turns into a time-consuming mess because work sprawl has scattered the tools and contexts we rely on. And the trend towards bundling software isn't addressing the root of
Now, when you hear West Asia, what is it that comes to mind? In our circles, it's usually something not encouraging, maybe sirens in Tel Aviv or explosions in Beirut or long and bloody civil wars. Unfortunately, that's been the media stereotype about West Asia. But even in this gloom, one city has always stood out, sort of like an oasis, far removed from wars or proxies or missiles. The city of gleaming towers and artificial beaches, a city of foreign businessmen, influencers, and sports icons, a picture of calm amid chaos. I'm talking about the city of Dubai. But in the last 2 days, that calm has been shattered. Hotels in Dubai have been hit by Iran. Even the airport and the iconic Burj Khalifa have been damaged. The question is, will this permanently hurt the city's global ambitions? And what is the UAE government doing about it?
There's a meme floating around on social media. Came to Dubai for the tax shelter, now stuck in a bomb shelter. In peacetime, it may have elicited a few laughs. But now, in the middle of booming drone interceptions and burning hotels, there are few laughs. Dubai is sitting in the middle of a war zone, and the next Iranian strike could land anywhere. This footage probably sums it up best. An Iranian projectile flying dangerously close to the iconic Burj Khalifa. Thankfully, it's blown up before impact. Other sites were not so lucky. On Palm Island, the Fairmont Hotel was targeted by Iranian Shahed drones. Tourists rushed out in panic as a fire broke out. The Burj Al Arab Hotel met the same fate. This high-rise, along with the Khalifa, is the poster child of Dubai's glittering skyline. Overnight, it was hit by Iranian drone debris. Dubai's ports were not safe either. Both the airport and the seaport were hit by projectiles. Such scenes were unthinkable until yesterday. A war in West Asia may not shake you up as much, but strikes and drones in Dubai, that's enough to shake up anyone. Because Dubai wasn't just a city, it was an exception and an inspiration in a region known for instability. The city's history goes back centuries. Dubai began its journey as a small fishing village. In the 20th century, it was developed as a trading and transport hub. After all, here was a city located on the Persian Gulf near the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. Then, in the 1960s, came the oil boom. Dubai did not squander its oil revenue. The ruling family invested all that money into infrastructure. By the 2000s, the city was home to global icons, like the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, and the Palm Island, an artificial archipelago, home to luxury residences and hotels. Even now, trade and transit remain crucial for Dubai's success. The city's airport handles 95 million passengers annually. The Jebel Ali seaport handles 15.5 million 20-foot equivalent units of cargo. As a safe, swanky, and prosperous city, Dubai is home to a cosmopolitan population. Only 10% of the population is Emirati. The remaining 90% are from outside, from dozens of nationalities. This booming success of Dubai was based on the stability and peace that it offered. Other cities like Jeddah and Doha tried to replicate its success. But if you cannot guarantee that stability and peace, will these cities flourish? Will tourism or trade thrive? Only time will tell.
As the crisis continues to unfold, its impact is becoming global. Airports across the world, in fact, are facing disruption. Flights have been cancelled, routes diverted, and thousands of passengers stranded over the past 2 days. Much of the airspace over West Asia remains closed or restricted, and major hubs like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha have all come to a halt. For many travelers, there is still no clear timeline of when they can fly. So how extensive is this travel disruption? And if you are planning to fly soon, what should you be doing? Here's our report.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can...
Across airports from Asia to Europe, the scene is the same. Passengers are stranded beneath flickering departure boards. The word cancelled flashes in red. Gates that should be boarding long-haul flights stand still. And no one is able to tell the travelers when that will change. Above West Asia, flight paths that normally link continents have gone quiet. The disruption followed a sudden military escalation. The United States and Israel carried out strikes on Iran on Saturday. Iran responded with missile and drone attacks across the region. Within hours, the skies began to close. Large stretches over Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Israel, Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE were closed or heavily restricted. Flight tracking data then showed those corridors almost empty of commercial aviation traffic. The consequences were immediate. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha are not just any destinations. They are the engine rooms of global long-haul travel, handling millions of connecting passengers every week. When those hubs slow or shut down, the disruption does not stay local. It spreads. Reports indicate that thousands of flights planned to West Asia have been cancelled or diverted over the past 2 days. And the number is still rising. The uncertainty is now adding to the chaos inside terminals. In Bali, travelers crowded around airline counters serving Gulf routes. Departure screens showed flights to Doha and Abu Dhabi marked cancelled or postponed. At least 1,000 passengers were affected after 5 services were disrupted. I asked, is the airspace closed? Yes, yes, yes. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We're waiting here. We slept at the airport. We've been here since 10 p.m. yesterday, and now it's almost 1 p.m. Still no news, so we're waiting. In Paris, flights to the Gulf disappeared from departure screens.
I had a flight this morning to Thailand with a layover in Doha, and unfortunately the flight was canceled due to the tensions in Iran. So now we're trying to find a solution to still make our trip to Thailand.
Then the situation worsened further. Reports emerged of Iranian strikes damaging facilities in Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Kuwait. That deepened concerns about the safety of airports across the region. In fact, the chaos has not stayed contained to the Gulf. Tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan have added further strain as airlines navigate narrower corridors. And the ripple effects of that have reached India too. Air India cancelled multiple departures from Delhi, Mumbai and Amritsar to London, New York, Chicago, Toronto, Frankfurt and Paris. Indigo extended the suspension of several international routes that pass through West Asia airspace. At several airports in India, passengers faced long queues and abrupt itinerary changes.
The flight has been cancelled and they have no information of when the aerospace will be open. They are not giving us to rebook. They are not giving us any options as of now.
Airlines across Europe, Asia and North America have grounded services or diverted aircraft along longer routes. This is to avoid the closed skies. Some carriers have paused operations entirely until authorities confirm conditions are safe. Others are operating reduced schedules with extended flying times. For passengers caught up in this, the situation is still changing rapidly. Here is what you need to do right now. Do not travel unless your journey is urgent. Check your flight status directly with your airline before leaving for the airport. Make sure your contact details with your carrier are up to date. Know what refund and rebooking options are available to you. And expect last-minute changes and factor in extra time. Above all, keep monitoring your government's official travel advisory. For now, flights across one of the world's busiest air corridors remain severely disrupted, and there is no clear timeline yet for a full return to normal operations.
Global markets are on edge, and the reason, as I'm sure you know, is not a stock ticker. It's a narrow stretch of water, the Strait of Hormuz. Just 20%, in fact, 20% of the world's oil flows through just this choke point between Iran and Oman. Now, after recent strikes on Iran and Tehran's counterattacks, tensions are pushing that vital corridor, the Strait of Hormuz, towards disruption. Insurance firms are pulling back, electronic navigation systems are reportedly being jammed, and the world's largest shipping company, Maersk, has pulled its vessels out of Hormuz for safety. So will oil prices spike in the coming days? Our next report tells you.
When bombs fall in West Asia, it doesn't just stay limited to the region. It shakes your petrol pump, your grocery bill, your electricity bill. And right now, the world is holding its breath. Just days after the US and Israeli strikes on Iran and Tehran's retaliation, the oil cartel OPEC Plus met. This group includes heavyweights like Saudi Arabia and Russia, along with Gulf producers that are literally under missile fire. And they announced they would increase oil production by 206,000 barrels per day starting April. Sounds big? It's not. Before the meeting, analysts expected about 137,000 barrels per day. So yes, this is larger than expected, but in the grand scheme of global oil flows, it's modest. And here's the real problem. Oil isn't just about how much you produce, it's about whether you can move it. Which brings us to the global oil choke point at the center of it all. There's a narrow strip of water called the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's seaborne oil passes through it. Earlier, Iran's Revolutionary Guards signaled that the strait was closed. Electronic signals in the Gulf were reportedly jammed. Insurers began pulling back coverage, and then came the big one. Shipping giant Maersk, the world's largest container shipping company, said it was suspending vessel crossings through Hormuz for safety reasons. That's not a headline you ignore. That's the moment markets panic. Because if ships can't pass safely, it doesn't matter how much oil Saudi Arabia pumps, it can't reach the world. Before the conflict escalated, oil was hovering around $72 a barrel. If Hormuz stays disrupted, analysts warn prices could shoot to $120, even $150 per barrel. Now think about what that means. Air tickets, food transport, manufacturing costs, inflation again. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Saudi Arabia and the UAE do have land pipelines that bypass Hormuz. But those pipelines can't handle everything. If Hormuz is fully blocked, the world could still face a supply gap of 8 to 10 million barrels per day. That's massive. And suddenly, that extra 206,000 barrels from OPEC Plus looks like a drop in the ocean. For now, Iran says it has no intention of blocking the strait. But we don't know how things will develop in the coming days. Also, it's not just about oil. China came out strongly condemning the killing of Iran's supreme leader, calling it a violation of sovereignty and international norms. Russian President Vladimir Putin called it a cynical breach of moral and legal standards. Even Pope Leo XV appealed publicly to stop what he described as a spiral of violence before it becomes irreversible. North Korea condemned the strikes as illegal aggression. So what you're watching right now is not just a regional firefight, it's a pressure test of the global order. On one side, the United States and Israel. On the other, Iran, backed diplomatically by China and Russia. And in between are energy markets, shipping lanes, insurance firms, and central banks, and ordinary people. Can the world prevent an energy shock that turns a regional war into a global economic crisis? That depends on what happens next.
We told you about the latest developments in West Asia, but now let's also talk about the man himself. For more than 3 decades, Iran had one man at the top, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He was not elected as the so-called supreme leader by the public, but he controlled everything in the country. Presidents changed, policies shifted, but Khamenei stayed. He shaped Iran's nuclear ambitions. He oversaw its regional alliances and defined its confrontation with the West.
Okay, so speaking more to the impact of this war on the world. What is the effects of this war on the world? I wanted to share this as they kind of covered it. I just Googled, what is the effect of this war in West Asia having on the markets? So right now, the war in West Asia is having a significant impact on global markets, particularly oil and trade. The conflict has caused disruption in global trade, leading to rising oil prices and shipping delays. The United States military actions in Iran have resulted in a surge in oil prices, with Brent crude rising around 3.8% from 78.97 to a high of 81.40. Analysts predict that a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz could raise global oil prices by more than a third, potentially reaching $120 a barrel. This could lead to a significant increase in U.S. inflation, with some estimates suggesting that it could reach 5%. The conflict's potential to disrupt energy supply and trade routes has created a volatile environment for the global economy. Okay, now this is Reuters' report on it that kind of says something similar. So that's three different sources that we heard that says exactly what the impact of this war is supposed to be. Now, for me, I don't know that this was a wise decision for Trump to make. As a Republican going into an election season in November, I don't know that this was a wise choice to make, because one of the problems Trump is trying to solve is the high cost of things. Things are already costly. Now, that's not a problem he created. It was a problem he inherited from the Biden administration. But nonetheless, even though he's made some strides in lowering some costs, the cost is still too high for people's comfort, which is something they're going to take into consideration when they go to the voting booth for the midterm elections. That being said, making a decision that now drives the prices of oil, which is a critical thing that affects everything that we purchase, up, potentially drives inflation, which means up, which means the cost of the dollar or the value of the dollar is less. So it takes more dollars to purchase the same things that you used to purchase. Creates not a great environment, because at this point, the wind will shift to people saying that Trump created a situation that made the economy worse than what it was before, and thereby change is needed, and thereby he needs to be held in contempt or held in control, and that if he had more power, it would only further dig us into a hole much deeper. To me, this is not a good bargaining chip for Donald Trump to approach the midterms with, yet he took the risk anyway. Now, there are other major powers getting involved. Iran obviously is retaliating, but you also have Russia, you also have China, who both condemned the strikes. So they're not supporting what was done. And so in that creates these questions as to whether or not they'll get involved in this process as well, which further complicates the matter. So all that said, was this a good decision? In my view, no. To be honest, I haven't been a big fan of Trump's foreign policy positions, much of at all. A lot of things he's done has been a bit brass for my taste and my liking. Not saying he shouldn't be assertive and he shouldn't be someone that, demands respect when he steps in a room, especially when dealing with international partners and adversaries. But I do think he's taken measures that opens up the door for him to be criticized, and that further proves his critics right. They said he would be dangerous for the world. He would get us into wars. He would do all these things. And if he does things that further escalates tension in the world, then that means he's living up to their fears of him, or the propaganda they try to put out about him. It's hard to denounce that you didn't want to take us into war, but now you got us into war. It's hard to denounce that if you're taking steps and measures to get us into war. Now, maybe he could weather the storm. I don't know. Trump's a fighter. He seems to find ways to reemerge victorious, but I don't know if he's doing himself a service in this. Now, as a Christian, I'm going to pray that this situation does not escalate to a point where lives are lost and people, that it continues to go off the rails. But I don't think Trump was well advised on this decision, and I don't know where the consequences will be, but it does look a little like Iraq to me, happening all over again. So that's my take. Obviously, I like sharing some updates with everyone because I know different people have different things and they're not always following this stuff. But I think it's interesting to keep abreast of what's going on in the world, because as your prices go up, there's a reason why. And a lot of people are not associating these actions taken directly to why certain things in the grocery store cost more. So I think it's good to sort of bridge the gap and give people the full picture of what's actually happening and why it's happening, so that they can be informed voters and they can be informed consumers as well as citizens, and they can move accordingly. Well, if you guys are not already a subscribed member of the show, please like and subscribe, stay connected, but also weigh in, comment, let me know what you think about the recent events, day 2 of the war, Khamenei's death, the impact of this war, how it's already driven the cost of oil up by 3%, they said, which it could jump to almost 3 times that, or a third of that, if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, and just all these other factors with the bigger superpower countries weighing in and all of it. Share your thoughts. Let us know what you think. All right. It's yours truly, Mr. B, signing out. Thanks for joining me.